Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hello, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about
Bees Books. I'm feeling a bit giddy today, Jenny. I think it might be the sun.
What sun, Pari? What sun?
There was sun in Glasgow,
There is
which
no
made
sun
me
here.
giddy. And there was sun when I was doing book bug, and it actually got a bit uncomfortably hot.
Oh.
Yeah, but that might have been my
Big huge jumper, yes.
But I felt giddy, but the sun stayed with me. So the
Oh.
vitamin D.
Well, good.
Yes.
Excellent.
So good luck to you and to
That's
everybody
right.
listening.
Well, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
That's-
So our task this week was green, because this is Green Libraries Week, which neither of us knew very much about, but we've both done lots of research and can tell our listeners what it's about.
yes.
Can't we?
Yes, actually, yes. So
Oh,
it's
good.
basically, well, I think libraries by themselves are like really green and environmentally friendly and sustainable, because you're making a resource of books available to a much larger audience than you would books that you own, because you're usually only keeping it with yourself and maybe lending to friends, maybe not if you're like not a lender.
You're taking my books.
But here, I think just fundamentally we're a sustainable and green enterprise, because it's a community service, right? You
Absolutely,
come in, you
yes.
borrow, but it's also, I think, specifically focusing on books about different shades of environmentalism. So it doesn't just need to be one thing. There's so many different steps that you can take, or even for people who want to learn about things that maybe, the internet is giving them sorts of wild ideas
Yes.
and stuff, but also like skills that I think, ideas, skills, inspiration that is perfect, because you don't need to invest in
No,
like
absolutely.
this giant load of resources and books. You can just come here.
And absolutely, if you go to libraries, you will find displays of books about, sustainable gardening,
Yeah.
things like that. It only takes a small thing to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent segue into my first category
Excellent,
of
good.
books.
Because B has tasked us with green, not necessarily.
I see the justification
Yes.
rolling. Rolling like,
But it sounds like you've actually done your homework.
for one
so-
of the things. So it's a series of books, I'll tell you. One's called Mend It, Wear It, Love It. Stitch Your Way to a Sustainable Wardrobe. The other is Visible Mending. Repair, renew, reuse the clothes that you love. And the third is The Art of Repair, Mindful Mending, how to stitch old things to new life. Speaking of displays, I did borrow this from a display, and our co-worker is not angry about it at all.
That's because she knows she'll put them back.
I had to promise her,
Yes.
and then she had to, it's all going to be fine, it's fine, she said many times, trying to convince herself.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, yes. So this is very much the green, like, I'll talk more about why in terms of fashion and the environmental cost of fashion, and how mending and repairing and reusing things that you already have is, like, again, like libraries, fundamentally a green thing to do.
Absolutely.
Extending the life of your clothes, and especially clothes that you love. I'm wearing all the clothes that I love that I don't get to wear quite often because I have too many clothes. Like a lot of people have too many
Yes,
clothes.
uh-huh.
And this just encourages you, I think, to pick up a skill that you might not be super confident with, because mending, I think, I don't know if it's just me, but I know that like in the past it used to be much more of an everyday skill
Absolutely.
that people used to practice for the want of like money for buying clothes constantly. But now, because you have such cheap clothes,
Absolutely, yeah.
and it's not just, it's a structural thing, right? Because it's not just that you obviously have a lot of clothes, but you're also given these messages from everywhere that you need new
Absolutely.
every season, that it, you get into autumn, get a new coat, get new whatever, and you're just, it's not even coming from within you, you're just like sort of a stooge, basically.
Yes.
Unfortunately, and it's not your fault.
No.
But it's something that you need to uncondition and sort of escalate, I think.
Yeah.
So these books, they talk about that. They talk about how fashion is like the second most polluting
Oh.
thing in the planet.
What's
yeah.
the first?
Fossil fuels, I'm assuming.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, they don't say about the first. But like basically because of fast fashion, because of the model, you're spending so much energy, right from growing the crops, then creating the sort of thing, the clothes, the dyes and all the plastic stuff that's polluting the environment where it's being created, then transporting it to the rest of the world, and you throw it away. Like there's some shocking statistics about how people just wear clothes like between 5 to 7 times before tossing it away, and like spend like a ridiculous amount of money on clothes like together, and then it just like goes to landfill. It just, because you're not like taking care of it, you're not repairing or keeping it. It goes to charity shops sometimes, but charity shops get so much that they're just tossing out things that are not. So it's really interesting, and it's also teaching you. Like I love these 3 books because I've read 2 of them. I'm gonna read one of them, like for a specific project, because we were talking about this the other day, yesterday I think, about your dramatic adventurous weekend.
Yes.
And sort of unexpected things that happened. I had one similar as well, which I saved. I did not tell you this yesterday. I had moths in like a jumper that I got, a vintage jumper that I bought in the spring, so I didn't get a chance to wear it, and then I removed it from storage, and there's just like moth holes all over. And I was completely devastated because I love a good jumper, me.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh my god, what if they go into the other jumpers and things? So like I researched what you should do, and now I have like some very awkward holes in the jumper, and my first thing would be like, just toss it out. I've never worn it. I don't have like a relationship with it. It's fine. But I'm determined to be green and to learn a skill and darn them. Like even with visible mending, I quite like the idea of it, because it's sort of in this book, in one of the books, they talk about how it's adds beauty to it and character to it, like that your things are loved and repaired and you've taken time with it, and it's also great for your mental health, I think. Just the thing, because you're a crafter, you're a maker. So just sitting and like, using that, I think one of them says as well, mindful mending. So you're just sitting and you're making something, and then you've created something or recreated or repurposed something, which is pretty cool.
I think if you think back, like if I think back to my gran, she would sit and darn socks, and she would, that was their generation that they did. They didn't have the fast fashion, as you say, that we have now. So things were passed on, things were, you got hand-me-downs and things like that, and you were grateful for them, and, then they were darned, or they were made into something else, or they were cut up for rags. As you say, nowadays more people just kind of throw things out. I hate buying clothes and will wear things till they have holes in them, and the arm has to fall off before I'll
my partner is much the same.
But as you say, some people do buy an outfit for an event and then never wear it again, and it just kind of gets pushed back to the back of the wardrobe and then gets thrown out.
And I completely understand. It's the pressure, right? If everyone else is doing the same thing, and all these Instagram and social media messages, advertising everywhere. You go into a Sainsbury's and there's like new, Asda, Tesco, wherever you go in the city. It's a lot, and it's difficult for one person to be able to resist.
No, absolutely.
But over the last few years, I've been following a lot more slow fashion accounts and visible mending accounts who talk about these things, but not in like a judgy way. I mean, some of them do. There are a lot of judgy accounts out there, but I don't think that really helps.
No.
It might help some, but people get really defensive, right? Like when you're calling out behaviors that they participate in. I think this sort of changing your relationship with clothes is like a lifelong process, I think, because you're all these things. But if you start with something small, like take your favorite jumper, or like even sewing a button on to, like I got a shirt and the buttons popped off, so I'm just going to sit and like do a mending thing. I've done socks. Nobody can see the socks, so it doesn't matter how terrible my things are. But even in terms of things that you can see, I think it adds so much personality to clothes.
Absolutely, because you don't need to sew the same buttons on again. If you're anything like me, you'll have a collection of buttons somewhere. My gran again used to have a huge big biscuit tin full of buttons. Take out some of your favourite ones and put them on the top 3 of the shirt, that kind of a thing. So that you're then saying to yourself, I love this shirt, but also this button here reminds me of my gran. This button was off a dress that I loved, that I couldn't salvage, etc., etc.
I love that idea.
I think that's what visible mending, just for people that don't know, it's about mending your clothes, but you like, so back in the day, you know, you'd have this is a long time ago, but you'd have a denim jacket and you would have patches all over it. Originally those patches were supposed to be to hide or to cover, you know, a hole, and then it just became a fashion themselves, you know. But it's going back to things like that.
Yeah, and it's still like in some cultures and in even now, like certainly in like parts of India, but also like this book talks about Japan and a thing called wabi sabi, which is how there is sort of beauty in the aging process. So, you know, they're like patching things and, like you say, repurposing it from other fabrics that can't be salvaged, and like layering things on and stitching, and the stitches are quite visible as well, so you're not trying to hide. And hiding is fine as well, like get a tailor.
Absolutely, yes.
Like I have a good tailor because I'm not good at hiding. I'm like clumsy with my things, but I don't mind it, whereas some people, it's just different tastes and different
and sometimes
preferences.
the outfit or the piece of clothing doesn't lend itself to something visible, you know. You want to kind of hide what's happened.
So like either way, I think like either I think learning your skill, like I'm really excited to sort of darn my sweater because it's like chunky and I think easy to do, and then like I'll know the tragedy of the moths. But also like
the tragedy of the moths, that's got capital letters in it.
It does. It was quite a tragedy. I was like, I panicked all week. I was like, oh no, my sweaters. But no, they're all fine except for that one. But it will be fine again.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
I sit and so I'm gonna like refer to these books because I think they have a lot of like easy accessible language and pictures, so you can learn. Obviously you can go online and look at YouTube and whatever, but even this sort of slow mending, I want to take the books as a part of it as well, and just sit with it and learn something new and just experiment and
absolutely
see.
I like the idea as well of, you know, as saying, like, you know, it was a hand-me-down and then it became a dishcloth kind of thing. But there's also a lot of people now that kind of cut up the clothes and make them into blankets and things. You know, they kind of sew them together, and I'm sure there's a special name which I can't think of. But they kind of make it into, so you can look back and say, oh, that was my favourite pair of jeans. Or that was, you know, so-and-so's.
Teddy bears as well.
Exactly. You know, that's a nice way of repurposing things as well, because there's a story behind it, you know, and then you can then pass that blanket on to somebody else and they'll know the story behind it. There's lots of ways that you can, you know, repurpose.
Yeah, and these are things that you might not know or think of until like you see what things others are doing, because obviously I didn't. Like sewing and things I learned in like whatever when I was younger, like a button on, but beyond that, like I didn't know there was this whole movement out there of people getting really creative with their things and treating it as art. Really, It is art. And I think like sort of looking at it from that perspective is also nice. Like fabric arts, things that have been historically looked down upon because mostly women used to do it, and now it's taking on new ways, and like it can be an environmental and a green thing to do.
So again, rag rugging, I think that's the right thing, you know, using bits of material from things to make that, but not just making it a rug, you know, putting a design in it and all that kind of stuff. You know, there is something to be said for that. Yeah,
lots of like Indian things as well. I mean, until about like 10-15 years ago, we didn't really have this, even fast fashion isn't that old, like, you know, things like H&M, Zara and stuff. But we had like a very different relationship to clothes in India. Obviously, people still buy, but it's more local. It's more like either within the region or like outside in the country, and a lot sort of more accessible to like different kinds of people. Like tailors are much cheaper in India as well, so people make new clothes and then will repurpose, like you say, things that here might have been done in your grand's generation is still being done, but the fast fashion sort of like import of that into India is changing that relationship a little bit, especially with like urban, you know, sort of people, which again, like, it's difficult to blame, but it's nice to remember it doesn't have to be that way. There is an alternative.
Absolutely. And then you don't have to do it with everything, you know, but just, you know, as we said, small steps. You know, just thinking about that favourite t-shirt and sewing all the things and stuff in it so it becomes a cushion that was your favourite t-shirt. And my brother's done that with a few of his t-shirts. You know, just kind of, and now they sit on his couch and they're kind of used as cushions. You know, there's lots of things that you can do. It's nice.
Well, I want to now know your green offering for B.
Okay, so I'm pretty glad that you've like really like took that into heart because I've not.
No.
I just really want to talk about this book. So I have found a very small bit of green. It's possibly blue, but we'll say that it's green.
I think it's teal, which has a bit of green and blue
Yes,
in
thank
it.
you, Pari. Well done. And it is called The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton.
Oh.
And it is fabulous. However, I feel as if I want everybody to go and read it. Like, pause, go and read the book and then come back, because I don't want to spoil things for you, but I do want to talk about it. So I did pick it up with the spirit of green in mind, because I don't know how, but I thought it was going to be one of these kind of new eco thrillers, which are kind of like taking, you know, environmental disasters, and I thought it was going to be like that. It's not. There's a little bit of that in, but it is a crime book, but it's also one of the kind of books that we've talked about before that could also fit into science fiction. It could also fit into just fiction, but it does have murder on the cover, so and basically there's a map as well. I love a map. So basically it is about this island, and it appears that something has happened in the past, because humans are rubbish, and there's now this fog that basically covers the planet, and inside the fog are these wee insects that kind of eat everything. That's what I kind of got out of the hints that were about this fog. But this island is basically all that's left of humanity.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's quite a nice kind of village. They have, you know, the villagers that go out and do the farming and repair things and all that kind of stuff. And then there's 3 elders, and they seem to be scientists, and they seem to be trying to work out how to stop the fog, how to kind of solve this. Again, there's a lot in it that you could interpret different ways, and this is just my interpretation, but it seems that the fog was kind of man-made, and it's got out of hand and taken over the planet, as it were. So this is a wee island off the coast of Greece, I want to say. You can get that vibe. And the book itself has, you might not have seen this, but it's an old film called Logan's Run.
Heard of it.
With Michael York and Jennie Agatash in it. And basically it's these people live in this dome, and they reach a certain age and they no longer exist, shall we say.
A bit like Maze Runner, is that where like these dystopias they have overlap.
Yes, that kind of a thing. So basically the villagers stay till they're 60, and then they're killed off. But in a nice way. It's actually quite nice, because near the beginning of the book, somebody is just about to happen, that's going to happen to them, and they have the funeral with the person still there. So the person's still there, they have a big like celebration of that person. They go to sleep at night and then they don't wake up. And basically the whole village has kind of said goodbye, and actually it's kind of a nice way to do it, because they have to they can only sustain, I think it's 132 people on this island, and this is how they've kind of worked out how to do it. So you live till you're 60, and then somebody else comes in. So that kind of happens near the beginning.
So by somebody else comes in, do you mean like a baby or somebody from the outside?
So yes, so
okay.
Again, you kind of learn as you go along. Sorry, I don't want to spoil it.
I see.
But the children arrive 8 years old.
Okay.
And there's no kind of explanation to begin with of why they arrive at 8, and everybody just accepts that. So the 3 elders, the scientists, kind of disappear for a day and then arrive with an 8-year-old child, and somebody in the village has been chosen to become the parents, although the children are kind of raised by the whole village. You know, they'll go and live with them and kind of grow up. It seems quite a good system, but there's something lurking in the background. And one of the villagers, who I completely forgotten the name of, no, it's gone, I want to say Emery, is slightly more inquisitive than everybody else and asks a lot of questions. So everybody is kind of settles into a task. So they either become like a joiner, or they farm the crops and things like that. And she's tried her hands at lots of different jobs and hasn't settled on anything. So one of the elders thinks that maybe she'd be good as a teacher, because she does have quite an inquiring mind, but she does ask a lot of questions.
That's gonna get you killed in a horror movie. Emily.
So a murder happens, and because of her personality, she's kind of asked to try and solve it. Because basically this murder happens, and then everybody's memory of that night has been wiped. Because what I haven't told you, Pari, you've got a look of shock on you, is that everybody has what we would think of as AI in their heads.
I see.
So they have Abby in their heads, and she talks to them and kind of helps them along. It's not really explained how that happens. She also has kind of control of their body slightly, so she can make them, if they were running to the edge of the cliff, she could make them stop. If an accident was going to happen, she can kind of pull them back. Yes. So she's been told to wipe everybody's mind.
By whom?
Yes. And then she kind of tries to help Emery discover what's happened, because she's wiped herself as well.
I see.
Yes. But it's a wonderful book. It's hard, as I say, to pigeonhole.
Yeah.
At first glance, yes, it is a crime book. But there's all this other stuff happening in it. And the narrator of the story is Abby. Basically, Abby is the one that's kind of telling you this story. And obviously she has access to what everybody's kind of thinking. So she's telling you, as you're going along, what's happening. And it's quite a good way of doing it, if you know what I mean. Because she is neutral. She's not really, or is she, on anybody's side, if you know what I mean. And it has a brilliant ending. A brilliant ending with lots of questions. But I don't mind that I don't have the answers. It's more of kind of, it makes you think ending. What would happen now? What, that kind of a thing.
So it feels complete, but
yes,
with room for people like Emery who are curious and ask questions to like imagine.
Yes,
differently.
yes. And it's just, as I say, I would not probably picked up in a normal run of things, even though it's a crime book and I like crime.
And it's a fantastic title and cover.
It is a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
And as I say, it has a map.
Yeah.
I do love a map.
Yeah.
However, we have covered up half the map with date labels and things, but anyway.
So it goes in libraries.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it so much that I've taken his other two books out to read.
Wow, okay.
And when you read a wee bit into them, because I always like to read the thank you bit at the end, it looks like every single book he writes is different. So the one that I'm just about to start is basically about a ghost ship. It is called The Devil in the Dark Water. It also has a fabulous cover.
Is it all also genre sort of bending?
We filed it just in fiction,
Okay.
but from what it says, it's kind of like a ghost story, and that's not usually my kind of thing. But because I enjoyed this so much, I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
The other one is called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Oh, that one was really popular.
Yes, and I think it's going to become some kind of
a TV series or something.
Yes. And again, at first glance, it kind of looks as if it would be like crime book or something, but it seems to be more of a Groundhog Day kind of thing, that reliving the same day over and over until you get it right. So 3 completely different looking books.
That's cool though. I like when you're surprised by especially the same author, or like even from his perspective,
Stuart,
his perspective, it would be cool to play around in all these different words. Like when you were describing this world, it seemed really fascinating to me. I have like a sort of love-hate relationship to dystopias. Like I really enjoy reading them, and like I get way into them, but they're so depressing that sometimes I just want to read something nicer. But I like that there's like mystery and there's like nosy buses,
exactly.
and there's like world building that's going on. That's
Yes.
really interesting. Like, I love a good world building
Yes.
sort of exploration.
And it's just, you kind of learn about the scientists, the elders, because they're like in, you know, heading, I think one of them's like 100 and something. So
So
it's kind
they
of like,
get to stay after 60.
yes,
I
no,
see.
they're elders also because they're old, not just
I
elders
see.
because they're, and it's like a mother and son and then somebody else.
I find all of this very sus,
Yes.
Jenny. All of this is very sus.
And the son is called Hephaestus. No, I'm saying that wrong, but
H.
yes, and he's kind of like a big burly kind of kind of guy. But in the acknowledgements at the end, I like that the author kind of basically thanks the reader. You know, he's here to thank, as usual, the kind of publisher and everything, but he thanks us. And I'm trying to, so even if you enjoyed my Groundhog Day murder mystery novel, which must be The Seven Deaths, I appreciate that you might not be up for a historical haunted ship book, which is one I'm about to read, or the sci-fi apocalypse novel I've just given you. So he's got 3 very different books, and basically he's saying, you know, thank you for trying them. I know they might not all be for you, because we do get used to, I think, authors who write the same thing, you know. So I'm quite looking forward to reading the Ghost Ship.
Like, you've totally sold it to me. I want to, like, I want to listen to this, but I can also imagine watching it, like, because of, you know, you'd get so, like, as a TV series maybe, or like a movie, it would be so cool.
I would like it to be I'm not keen on books into movies because I think they cut too much out. I would like to see it as a, you know, a 10-part series, and I think it would really work with Abby being the narrator behind the TV, you know, the TV.
Like, they could do experiments.
And about how, you know, everybody just accepts that she's there, you know, and
but that's the thing, there's so much stuff right now that we take for granted.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, especially like because we're talking about green, especially about the way the world works in terms of destroying parts of it and like exploiting some parts of it, and you're like, this is the way the world is. But I love that art like this, even if it's like a murder mystery that's set at the end of the world, makes you think a little, reflect, like it gives you that, offers you the distance to reassess.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you're just reading it, but then like you're drawing on things that you know and you're making connections with the book that you're reading, and you're like looking at both differently. So you're like, each person is reading a different book because you're bringing your own whatever things to it, and you're building theories and stuff.
Absolutely.
So like I love that, and I know how to make it a green thing, I think.
Thank you.
Because they all seem to be living a pretty like they really care about sustainability, and they're really connected to the world, to the island that they live in, and to each other. Like these connections and relationships that they build seem to be very well thought of. Like of course they accept Abby as the thing, but they also seem to be reflecting on what it takes to make the world survive and thrive and whatever.
Absolutely.
And I mean, they might not know things.
No,
but
nothing.
No.
But no, you're right. You know, they have basically got this village that they sustain. They don't have any of the rest of the world helping them at all. So, you know, they are kind of doing exactly what we were talking about. You know, remending clothes, and you know, and kind of passing them on, and you know, they know they can only sustain so many people. So they've developed a system where that's what they do. You know,
and it's like sort of sacrificing. You know, you're ultimately going to sacrifice however longer you would have lived after 60 to give other people a chance of life. Like again, now you don't know the nitty-gritties of it, but I think they're more reflective of things in a way that I think a lot of people at the moment, especially in like more wealthy societies, aren't. Because we're so caught up in like the everyday and like the stuff and like things that are so unimportant at the end of the day. But you live in the society, so you know you're a part of it. But you've become disconnected from so many parts of it, which is what's leading to so many crises. Like not just environmental, but loneliness and disconnection and things. So it's another, I guess, sort of turn of like
and that's the thing, you know, they're living as a village, and they look after each other, and everybody knows everybody else, and You know, it's just like they've shrunk things down.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting as well because there's no modern tech
Yeah.
that they really have access to. They're kind of doing things what we would say is old-fashioned. There is tech that's been found on the island, and that's what the scientists take apprentices on, to go and find this tech and then try and do things with it. But at the same time, there's certain things that are happening that you think, well, there must be more to
It's a bit like Lost. It sounds like, you know, the TV show, which was like, I hadn't watched the full thing, but that's what it's like. They're on this island, there's weird things that they're discovering. They don't quite know what's going on. They just have to figure things out by themselves. Not to romanticize, like this sounds like really scary as well, like you're not certain and things. So it's just like some advantages, some disadvantages, just like our life.
Yes,
some
exactly.
pros, some cons. But no, it sounds, I think you've sold it really well.
Good, because I want everybody to go and read it.
I am.
Stuart Turton fans.
Yes. So I'm quickly going to talk about
I see that you have another book.
This one is a bit left field green.
Oh.
So it's called Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Someone Who's Been There by Cheryl Strayed. You have like a question mark on your face.
Yes, I do, yes.
Yes, so this is the green that I actually thought of while talking to you a couple of weeks ago, which is the sort of colloquial, is that how you say it? Colloquial?
That's how I would say it.
You know, the phrase of green, like the idiom, which is you don't know a lot about a specific
so you
thing.
knew, it's kind of, you don't know.
You don't know. So this is basically, it started off as an advice column on a website called The Rumpus years ago. I first encountered it, I think, in my early 20s, so like about 10 years or so ago, because I used to follow the thing. It's the same author who's written Wild, who's like, it's really popular. But essentially, it's people writing in, and she is Sugar. Like, that's how her name. She was an anonymous person, like writing sort of advice to people. And advice columns are not really my kind of thing. Like self-help and stuff, you wouldn't look at me and like, oh, she's an advice column reader. No. But this book, it was in my radar. I think I knew about it. I knew it existed. It was written in 2012. And at that time, I think, you know, callow youth, I was like, this is like, I'm too fancy for this. I'm too like, this is not for me. I don't need advice in my life. But now I think like I'm mid-30s now, 34. I feel like the hope that's like, I'll tell you what it's about. Wait, I have, she has her preface to it. Of course, I have it. Yes, I have it here. I was like, I'm going to spend time finding it. So this is the preface to the 10th anniversary edition, which is what I was reading. So I wasn't reading this, but we have like an ebook version and we have a physical version as well. So this is what she says. I've long believed literature's greatest superpower is how it makes us feel less alone. Across generations, cultures, classes, races, genders, and every other divide, stories and sentences can make us think, oh yes, me too. That is precisely how it feels to love and lose and triumph and try again. The only thing I ever hope to do as a writer is to make people feel less alone, to make them feel more human, to make them feel what I have felt so many times as a reader. Stories have the power to save us by illuminating the most profoundly beautiful and terrible things about our existence. Like, she has totally sort of, this was really popular and still is. I think it led to like a podcast and like all sorts of things. It's just people writing about things that trouble them. You know, you want an advice from someone who maybe is not your friend or your like family or a therapist, I guess. A stranger just, who has a very who has no kind of connection with you and can give you like advice. But she treats it with so much grace. Like in one of the introductions, like one of the people says that it's radical empathy is what she's offering. Because she's taking all these stories and they're about things like heartbreak, but also things like death and grief and illness, but also some like random, like friendship, like not random, but like it's important still, but you know, some small things and big things and medium-sized things. And people are just writing. And she is sort of like offering advice in a very graceful way. I don't mean graceful as in she is graceful, as in she's like fancy, as in she's offering a lot of grace. But she's also offering a really steady point of view in that she calls people out on very nicely, very gracefully on their nonsense. She's like, I'm so sorry. And in a very nice way, because sometimes like over lunch I was just reading one of the things And I was like, this person is nuts. Like, I would have been much less kinder, I think. But she obviously is thinking about it and she was writing. And they work as like really like glimpses of humanity and the hope and the love and the grief and the silliness and like the pettiness, like all these things. You're seeing, so some of the things you connect with, like, oh yes, I also like money troubles or whatever, friend troubles, like partner troubles, whatever. Or some of the things you'd be like, oh no, this doesn't, like I don't, but it's really interesting to read about these really horrible things, because she writes about it like, in the introduction, the person says that, you know, advice columns are supposed to focus just on the person who's writing in. That's how you'd usually think. But she writes a lot about herself in it as well, not in a like, sort of, oh, look at me, I've had it worse kind of way, but in a form of connection, like sort of compare and contrast kind of thing. And this is what's giving her the ability to say that you'll be okay, or this is what you should do, or this is what I think you should do, this is what maybe you should think of. And it's really strange, but it is like, you know, like I was saying with Repair as a work of art, I feel like it's like Advice Column as a work of art, because it works as a literary thing. It's almost like glimpses into people's stories and narratives, but just glimpses. Yeah, just like small little glimpses that you're seeing. It's just a few pages. Some of them are like 6 pages, some of them are like 15, 20 pages. But it's like you're seeing people in a different light, and you're seeing yourself in a different light. And I was very taken aback by how much I'm enjoying it. I was reading it before bed last night. I was just like crying at one of the things. I was like, this is so, it was a tiny beautiful thing, yes. And I was like, in my early 20s, I would have been like, too, like, this is not for me, and I was. And I'm so glad I read it when I was ready to read it. It's for this, like, I picked it up just specifically for this, and I'm like, I think a third of the way through, really enjoying it. And
is it, like, did they write into, like advice columns to me are like hark back to days when you wrote into the newspaper?
Yeah.
Is it that kind of a
yes,
thing?
Yeah.
Right.
So it was a website, so it's like they're writing into the website, so they'd either email or they would, like there's a form that the website has. I don't know if it's still running, and she used to write this for free. Like it's a website that was like started by a writer about books and literature, and like filled with like other people like writing about it is a culture. And she was just like, she had 2 small babies, and you know, she still like took time out to write, and she treats it so seriously. You know, sometimes she'll make jokes and things about it as well, but at least the ones that I've read, they feel so real and so raw as well, because she's had a difficult life. You get glimpses of that as well, and she writes about that. She's really not in like a, oh, look at me kind of way, but in like a, you know, like, look, this is what is connecting us kind of way.
It sounds as if she's got empathy because she knows, if you know what I mean. She's kind of had her troubles, so she's got some background. You know, she's not sitting there with the perfect life and could just say whatever she wants because she knows what these people are.
But she's also sort of like meeting them where they are. You know, like she's not dismissing them. Like there was like in one of the things, like a early 20s girl who's written and saying that, you know, she's had a boyfriend of 6 years and now she feels like, you know, she doesn't want to like be with him, but there's nothing wrong. And like at that age you don't know, right? You don't know these things. And like me, I would be like, yes, I've gone through this, and you know, like the same thing. But she isn't dismissing it. She's like, look, this is what happened to me at that time, but this is what you have to look forward to. And she writes so beautifully about things that you might be like, oh, I know this, I've been through this, because of the way that she's framing it, and she's like taking it seriously. It's just a really lovely kind of
I can see
book.
that you're as enthusiastic about this as I was about my book.
But it's so surprising. Like, even though you said that you might not have picked that up, I also only picked this up for B.
Yeah.
And for
so
you.
Sometimes B does kind of give us a push in the right direction, doesn't she?
And like, I would fully recommend this book. Just even if you're not into advice columns, I certainly wasn't. It's just like, even if you're reading it as a book, like as a narrative, as a work of literature, I think it works.
And where is it? What category does it come under in our
psychology,
right? Okay.
Sure, yes.
Which
but I think it's just life.
Yeah. But that's a nice place to put it, I suppose. It does kind of
But you have like this idea of psychology as being about something like big.
Yeah.
And this is about something big, but it's also about small things. And like I said, it's about everyday things.
And we all know, though, that small things can seem big to some people.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, if these
Absolutely.
people have taken the time to write in,
Yeah.
it's been important to them at that time. And it's nice that she kind of treats it as such, you know.
And it still works because these things were written, in 2012, right? And I'm reading it now in 2024. But there's things like this mother writes in about a miscarriage that she's had and how depressed she is. And like the advice still holds, the experiences still hold because there's no like you have an experience at one time and then it's done.
No, exactly.
It like sort of echoes throughout time and space. And so I think it would work for whoever you are, wherever you are, which is what I think, which is why it's led to such a successful like podcast and like whatever, because it's just, you know, this idea, because you're so isolated otherwise, you don't know what's going on in another person's head all the time. And these are so intimate and so tragic sometimes, you know, like
Well, you said you cried. So.
yeah, well, I cried so much. Like I cried at unexpected things also because just
Fair enough.
with so much love she writes. It's beautiful. I'm getting sappy in my old age.
Right, but yes, we all do. It's nice though, especially in book form, that you're going to read, I'm assuming, what the person's wrote in and then what she's kind of said. There's no nasty wee comments at the end like you would get online now.
Yeah.
You know, there's no somebody going, oh, that's all very well, but, you know, that kind of thing. That's why I like books, if you know what I mean. That's it on its own, and you're getting, you know, the problem and the kind of solution, but in a nice way, and nobody's kind of taking the mick out of anybody. Nobody's kind of sitting there going, I don't care, you know.
And like she actually talks about that like in the preface, because she's writing that 10 years after. She writes about how, you know, in this age of the internet and the pandemic and fewer places to congregate with people who you might not otherwise sort of agree with, or you know, like who are your kind of people, you're getting so fractured and so isolated and so disconnected,
which makes it easier to just be dismissive and just say something nasty because you're anonymous basically, you know.
Or even think it, like I
Absolutely.
think, like, you know, you have such petty thoughts and such, or you know, you'll have like a group chat with your friends and you'll be like you know, sort of being not nice about certain things in that space. But the fact that she makes space for all the pettiness and then responds with both like, I think you're not being the best version of yourself, but not in like a preachy way. It's in a very real way. I know I've used the word real a lot of times, but it just, I was very unexpectedly moved by it. I was like, oh, this is not my kind of book. Oh wait, maybe it is, question mark.
Right, okay.
So,
interesting.
So green in a different way.
Excellent. I think we've done Be Proud, or we've just annoyed her a lot. But,
yes. So do you know what we have in store for us next time?
Yes, and this deserves a slight pause. Success.
Oh.
But I don't know how she means it. I don't know if it is, again, because she does this to us, if it's success, like yay, or success, or I just don't know. So
do you know, like, whenever I'm confused by the theme, I don't know why my brain just goes to murder.
Success.
There's something to be, exactly, like a successful murder is
absolutely.
A success.
Well, reach your turn,
Exactly.
you get there.
Exactly.
So yes.
So, you know, it's good to be, because I'm like, I have a weird relationship with the idea of success. So I'm a bit like side-eyeing this theme and be a little bit, if I must be honest.
Although, I like the idea that success could also cover the fact that this tiny beautiful things, you weren't expected to like it.
That's true.
Success.
You're right. There's a lot of interpretations for success, and we've like been really successful. Maybe if I actually repair my jumper,
Yes.
yes,
And
I could get my jumper as.
And there's that feeling of like,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't have to be like a big, you know, I've just got the job of my dreams. It can be.
That's true. I had found the best hot chocolate in Glasgow.
Yes.
Success. Okay, I'm into it now. You've talked me around.
Okay.
Yes, I should trust B and us.
She knows what she's doing most of the time. Okay.
But yes, this was really fun. I'm totally putting that book on my TBR.
Good.
And yes, I hope people enjoyed listening to our various interpretations of green. But see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.